This video looks at three very different Hungarian steam locomotives. First, number 204, a 1900 built 440. Next, the high-speed tank locomotive number 242001. And last, a modern 484 number 424247. Although number 204 was built in 1900, it looks considerably older, not helped by the typically tall chimney, a feature of many early 20th century Hungarian locomotives. While the cab was large, it didn't provide much protection from the very cold weather in Hungarian winters. The controls were simple and there was only one water glass. There was considerable public interest in the train, and its arrival had obviously been given considerable publicity. Clues to the age of the design are shown by the very large cylinder valve chests and by the outside frames. Only 4 of the Class 242s were built. They were intended to show the capability of the Hungarian railway engineers and closely followed the design of the East German Class 61, although this was a larger engine of a 464 design. The locomotive is kept at the infamous Istventelak yard, also known as the Red Star Train Graveyard. There are over 100 engines at this location, kept in 2 sheds. The one shown here is where maintenance is done. The other shed is now unsafe to enter, and a precise knowledge of the locomotives in that shed has been lost. Getting access to maintain the locomotive is very difficult and time-consuming. These legs are of a dummy, but maintenance staff have to get under the valances to oil the bearings. The locomotive wasn't an attractive design. Its nickname was the Coffin, but it was a very capable locomotive, very fast, aided by its 6'7" driving wheels and a stable engine at speed. Originally coal-fired with a surprisingly large capacity of 4.8 tons, it was converted to oil firing in the 1960s. The number plate proudly proclaims Royal Hungarian State Railways. Seeing the locomotive was evidently considered a worthwhile reason for bringing local school children at a country station on a trip to look at the locomotive. The destination of the journey was the religiously important city of Esztergom, located on the Hungarian-Slovak border. The city has a population of just under 30,000, but a brand new electrified service of 2 trains an hour to Budapest, formed of 2 Stadler 4-car EMUs, operated the service, all of which had barely any passengers. A very complex series of shunting moves is required to allow the locomotive to run around the train and station it in the correct platform ready for departure. the new track layout was really only intended for EMU use.
I will wait for some instructions.
Finally into the correct platform. The journey then continued to the border town of Komaron on the Hungarian-Slovak border, before continuing across the river Danube that forms the border with Slovakia, and on to the town of Komano. After a brief stop, we returned to Hungary and began the journey back to Budapest. A stop was made at the small rural village of Mor, where the locomotive was serviced and took water courtesy of the local fire service. The crew took advantage of the stop for a meal break. While the locomotive was serviced, one of the infrequent passenger trains formed of a Hungarian Class 117 single rail car appeared at the station. The final Hungarian locomotive to be looked at is the famous Class 424, built in large numbers over a 34-year time span. It is these locomotives decorated with a red communist star that has given the name to the locomotive store, the Red Star Train Graveyard. The locomotive ran around its train in readiness for the next part of the journey that led to the Hungarian border station of Zob. Class 424s had high-pitched boilers, very deep fireboxes, large diameter cylinders and driving wheels of 5'3" diameter, and produced 36,000 pounds of tractive effort, making them powerful mixed-traffic engines. Most were coal-fired, although this one had been converted for oil firing. The train contained a wooden-bodied clerestory coach built in 1910, which had been used once on the Orient Express. This is the Hungarian border station of Zob, and it's only a short distance across a bridge spanning the river Danube before reaching the Slovakian town of Sturovo. At Sturovo, the locomotive made a rapid run round the train. The final look at number 247 is of it making a slow repositioning move